Hi, my name's Tonia Bales. I am a wife, a mother, a nurse anesthetist, and the first wife of the infamous Dirty John.
Welcome to your host, Jules True Crime, where I strive to share true crime stories with a purpose. Hi, it's your host, Jules. Let's go. Today's purpose comes with a warning from a survivor herself. This is a weekly podcast, new episodes each Wednesday. To see episode photos, make sure you follow me on Instagram at your host, Jules. Now, this is a very low to no banter podcast, so if that's what you like, make sure you subscribe so you can hear more. And make sure to consider to give me a 5-star review and rating wherever you're listening, because that helps keep my podcast in the algorithms. Okay, let's go. John Meehan's name became synonymous with the pseudonym Dirty John throughout the United States when in 2017, a true crime podcast, investigative podcast of the same name, Dirty John, became a media sensation. Now, the podcast, produced by Wondery and Los Angeles Times, achieved over 10 million downloads within the first few weeks alone. To this year, in 2026, it remains one of the most highly acclaimed true crime podcasts. Now, if you've not heard of the story behind the podcast Dirty John, this is what you need to know. I got you. John Meehan spun a web of lies, deceit, destruction, and abuse to manipulate and con Deborah Newell into marrying him. John's life would end when Deborah's daughter bravely fights for her life after he brutally attacked her in an attempt of murder. As a survivor, Deborah's daughter now currently advocates for victims and their stories and has become a voice for survivors. She travels speaking and educating others, and her name is Tara Newell. And while millions listen to the events leading up to the final moments of John's life, it also means that there is a lot that millions of listeners didn't hear. The podcast Dirty John focuses solely on the final year of John's life and the path of destruction that he left. Yet there was an entire lifetime, an entire timeline of deceit, manipulation, adultery, and cons, which led to his final chapter.
Basically, my life's experience has, in a way, created my purpose. And that is warning and educating men and women of the nuances of manipulation and coercive control within a marriage and in the justice and legal systems to help keep us more safe.
A recently published book by Tonia Bales and Amy Jauman titled When You See It, How I Outsmarted and Outlasted Dirty John has been making waves in the true crime and mental health communities.
Yeah, so the book has a couple of meanings to me, which is why I chose the title. First of all, when you see it is when you see it, when you realize that you are married to someone dangerous, someone that you didn't realize that you were married to, someone who has, pulled the wool over your eyes or is unsafe. So it means all of those things as far as that is concerned. It is also
But that's not all. Tonia reveals something that John told her, something ominous.
one of the threats that John made to me over the phone when I started recording his threats which was, Tonia, when you see it in your eyes, you remember it was me, okay? Because that's what it's come down to. And that was a veiled threat that he was going to have me killed, So when that title came to mind, I just thought it really just has a double meaning to me.
Could Tonia choosing this title show the world that she is taking back her narrative? Now, here is the book description. Quote, when a wife uncovers her husband's sinister past and terrifying present, she wages a fierce battle to ensure the safety of her family and the integrity of her profession. Tonia Bales married a handsome young man named John Meehan who offered her a bright future. They had a happy marriage for nearly 10 years, weathering typical challenges couples experience. Then Tanya sensed something was wrong. He started coming home late, spending more time traveling, and they were losing their connection. Her gut told her to start digging for answers. Her questions uncovered a web of lies and then a shocking truth. Tanya had married a sociopath. How could he have hidden the truth about himself for so long? They had two children and seemingly normal, busy lives when Tanya discovered that John had been diverting drugs. She struggled to understand this level of deception, and little did she know that this was just the beginning. The more questions Tanya had, the more distant and angry he became, accusing Tanya of sabotaging their marriage and blowing things out of proportion. With the devastating realization setting in that Tanya may not have known her husband at all, and the threat of divorce looming over her, Tanya must push herself to dig further into this mystery. The discovery of more dark secrets, aliases, affairs, a criminal record, and a dark family past reveal that there is a story to be told, a story that can only be complete if John's previous victims, lovers, coworkers, and family are willing to come forward. End quote. Now, I wanted to invite Tanya on as our debut podcast guest for the new season of Your Host Jules True Crime because she is strong, she is intelligent, she's educated, she is nurturing, and you guys, she could be you. She could be your neighbor, your friend, your sister, someone you know that may be in the same situation that Tanya was in, but just couldn't see it. And now she wants to warn others and encourage everyone to know the signs and learn from her life. And that leads us to two words: coercive control. What is coercive control? Coercive control is where someone takes away your freedom and autonomy, but it goes way beyond just that. According to womenslaw.org, coercive control is a pattern of acts and behaviors that an abuser uses to take away your freedom and to control your life. The abuser may use fear, pressure, shame, or rules to wear you down to take over your choices. Sometimes the abuser may also use physical violence, sexual abuse, or other forms of domestic violence as part of coercive control. End quote. Coercive control may not manifest as physical abuse, everybody. So I want you to hear that. And in many cases, it actually doesn't. So the victims may not just have a hard time recognizing the abuse, but they may have a hard time proving it to others. And this makes for a very scary, very isolating, and very dangerous situation for the victims. I asked Tanya, what is coercive control to her?
But really, it's a lot of nuanced things in a relationship where I'll frequently say man, and it can be women, but it's just easier. And it is yeah, honestly more frequent male to female. But it's when a partner will put limits on what you know about the finances, what you're allowed to wear, what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to say. So it's nuanced. Coercive control is nuanced, details and things within a relationship that, maybe don't even seem harmful in the
Mm.
beginning. It might come across as very caring behaviors, like I don't want you to, drive there by yourself. I'll go with you, and it's a way to monitor someone or keep an eye on what they're doing. Just another way of controlling someone, maybe without them even realizing that is what's going on.
And she's not talking about a hypothetical narrative when she shares how it may seem caring at first, because that's how she saw her first husband, John, for the first few years of their marriage. Tanya reflects how she feels that she was the perfect victim. You guys talked about the perfect prey and how that is somebody who is agreeable.
Hmm.
I guess type of a purple people pleaser, excuse me, somebody that doesn't want to ruffle feathers and wants to see the good in somebody. And I also think of a perfect prey, somebody with a really genuine heart
Hmm.
that one
Yep,
that
someone
wants.
kind,
Mhm.
someone who's a fixer. I also was somebody who was very polite, and it was very uncomfortable for me to, especially on that first night, to, because I didn't have experience with rejection, not receiving rejection, but giving rejection. That was
Mm.
very uncomfortable for me, and I'm sure he could see that, and he pushed every boundary I had to get him, to give him a ride home, to then go into his place. I had no intention of doing any of that. And of course, it was almost, what, 30 years ago, and I hadn't seen Dateline. I didn't even know how dangerous any of that behavior was at the time. It wasn't on my radar. We were college kids,
Right.
basically. And so
How old were you when you guys met?
Tonia met John when in 1988 she was just 23 years old. And unbeknownst to Tonia at the time, John's lies began with hello.
I thought John was 24, but he was born in 59, so he was actually 6 years older than me, not just a
Okay.
year older than me.
Tonia begins to share what she's learned about John's coercive control tactics, or also considered warning signs, throughout the years, beginning with love bombing.
Data mining is another one of them. Data mining can look like someone who just seems very interested in you, asks you a lot of questions about yourself, about your values, and they use that to say, "Oh, I also think that way. I also like that." To make it look like that you're a perfect match, right? That you guys are, have a lot in common. And it also can be used to get a little secret, maybe, that eventually that they can use against you. And John was notorious for that. So if you told him that luckily I was very square and clean cut, he didn't really have much on me. But like if you told him that you used to smoke marijuana, or that you do now, or something like that, he will then use that against you when the time is right. He's going to tell everybody he's going to put flyers in your mailbox, he's going to post it on Facebook. Or John also was notorious for getting nude photos or lingerie photos and doing the same thing, embarrassing you, weaponizing your personal, intimate secrets.
Photos of you, to clarify.
I never took any nude photos, but that is a complaint of his other victims that occurred.
So it's love bomb, build your trust, make you feel seen, make you feel loved, make you feel connected, and then weaponize it
That's right,
for the control.
for the control.
Tonia and John were married for 9 years, and many of those years, Tonia will say that she thought they were happy, that they had a good relationship. But it was when she was pregnant with their second daughter that she began to notice things just seemed off. She couldn't put her finger on it, but her intuition told her things weren't right. What Tonia didn't know was, at that time, John was allegedly heavily involved in an affair with another woman in Michigan. It's John, though, who tells Tonia he's unhappy and he wants to separate. And it's then that he begins to make snide comments to Tonia. For example, John didn't call Tonia to let her know that he was going to be 3 hours late one evening. And when she expressed, hey, that's fairly rude to your family to not even call us, he then turns it against her and he tells her, I already have a mother. I don't need another one. But this comment piques Tonia's interest because of this. Tonia had never met John's mother before. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to their wedding before kids, when Tonia believed that she was marrying an amazing man. None of John's family is at the wedding. He had told Tonia that they were toxic, and if his mother ever came knocking, to watch out because she would just cause trouble. He was responsible, actually, for mailing out his family's invitations as well. However, Tonia would later find out that he actually never sent them. Just another one of John's lies to Tonia. A videographer is walking around the wedding reception, talking to the wedding guests, asking them to make comments to the bride and groom into the camera when Tonia watches the footage back with John. One clip made her turn to John and ask him, what's going on? You see, his friend looked into the camera and referred to John as Filthy John. And John will tell Tonia that, oh, they're just drunk, and dismiss it. But this moment will later go on to become the title of the podcast. changing filthy to the catchier dirty, Dirty John, which Tonia tells me is very fitting and very appropriate for John. It's important to note that all of John's adultery, secret lies, deceptions, it was all done behind the scenes, all while he was keeping up with the guys as a family man, married with 2 children and a strong career in medicine. When he told Tonia that he wanted to separate, she truly was shocked. And when she tried to save her marriage and counseling together, he was already checked out with his mistress in another state.
Do you think that John, in his way, had loved you?
I don't think a psychopath is capable of love. I spent a lot of time in the very beginning of this
Mhm.
asking myself that question. Was this a scam from the beginning, or was this, someone that loved me and cared about me and then just decided he didn't love and care about me anymore? But the more I learned about a psychopath, the more I think he didn't love me. It's impossible for him to love me. And it's not love if you build a relationship from the very first night on lies.
Amen.
There's
Yeah,
no
it's
definition of love in that.
this is not at all what love looks like to any
That's right.
degree. Um,
And honestly, it doesn't make me feel any better or worse, whatever the answer is.
have you understood over the years that it's him. It's not.
Sure. I mean, in the beginning, I thought it was me. I was willing to do whatever I needed to do. I took marriage very seriously. I was raised Catholic. It is a sacrament
Mhm.
to the religion, and I took it very seriously to get married once and to stay married and to be dedicated to making that work. And it was crushing in the beginning before I learned all the things about John. It was crushing. I lost tons of weight. I felt sick. Yeah, it was hard because it's embarrassing, right? I mean, it
Mhm.
shouldn't be embarrassing, but it kind of was. I was somebody that I think a lot of people thought had it all. I had an amazing career with an amazing profession. I had helped John become the same nurse anesthetist that I was. We lived in a beautiful home in a beautiful community, 2 gorgeous, healthy children. And then this bomb is dropped on me.
And here's how the bomb was dropped. Shortly after the birth of their second daughter, when John told Tonia he was unhappy and wanted to separate, a friend of Tonia's came to her and told her, "Hey, I found John's mother." And she gave Tonia John's mother's phone number. Now, Tonia was always told his mother was toxic, recall, so she hesitated before deciding to give her a call. Ultimately, it's the call that would arguably be said to have saved Tonia's life.
And one day I picked up the phone and honestly, my legs were trembling. I could barely stand up to call her. And I thought, but what's the worst thing that can happen? He's already
Right.
leaving me. I just need some answers.
Right.
John had filed for divorce. Tonia didn't know until she received the papers. She decided to go forward with calling his mother.
Right. Were you worried
So
about the repercussions of him finding out? Like if you went behind his back to call his mom, is that part of the fear, or were you worried of what you would actually find out?
I think it was both.
Mm.
It was something that I'm not gonna say he forbid, but he did warn me that his family was bad and that his mom would come knocking on our door and she's toxic. Like when we had children, he said she's going to show up and try to get into our lives. And he convinced me that all the members of his family had major issues, major dysfunction. And I had no reason to not believe him, you know. But I think I was nervous about what I might find out. And obviously, sometimes you know before you know.
Mhm.
And when she answered the phone and I said, my name is Tonia, I'm married to your son, John. And then there was like a silence. And then she said, "Oh, Tonia, I knew you would call me one day." And that's, I think, when I knew something's about to be, something is about to be, you know, dropped on me here. And
I
then, of
just got
course, it
chills.
was
Wow.
it was dropped on me. So many things. A life of deception. He's not the age that I believed he was. He's altered his name. multiple.
So you had still believed he was the age he had told you. It had not come out yet until this phone call?
That's correct.
Wow.
Mhm.
What year into the
Yeah.
marriage was this phone call, did you say?
So 9 years. Abby was
Okay,
born in
so
99 and we were married in 90. So a little over 9
wow.
years. I mean, he had a birth certificate that said 1964. Who has fake birth certificate? I don't,
Dirty John.
Dirty John. That's right.
Dirty
Dirty
John.
John. Yeah. So, she also revealed that he's mailing narcotics that we use in anesthesia to her other son, his brother, which is a felony.
Yeah.
And um, and then I had all this, I had a moral obligation to figure this all out and get it to stop.
John is working in Michigan at another hospital, and she calls him panicked and confused.
So John did call me and we had this conversation that was crazy. It went from, trying to get me to tell him what his mother said. And I said, John, why don't we just start at the beginning? Why don't you just start with the truth? What is going on here? Who are you and what is happening? Of course, that led to him saying that he had worked for the DEA in South America and they were all looking for him and he had put guys in prison and that he did it to protect me, for my safety, that he didn't tell me, that he had changed his name and like he was under some sort of um what's that called when they put you in
Like
some sort of
witness
protection.
protection?
Witness protection, yeah. So he acted, it was like something like that. And then it went from that to he's gonna, take my pension that I've earned and that he's going to commit suicide. He threatened suicide because, now this is all blown up and he's going to have to kill himself. And I'm going to have to tell the children that, their father killed himself. And of course, I didn't realize at the time that that was pure manipulation.
Mhm.
And it was scary. And then he also tried to reconcile with me because, of course, that is what I think he thought I wanted. And that would probably have shut me up. But by then, you know, we were too far deep into this. I didn't want anything to do with him. I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with him if I'd known from day one, but that's where we were. And I think with that, and then if I learned of what his mother told me of his past and things, even if he hadn't asked me for divorce, this was going to end.
And it's not long after this that John's brother dies from a drug overdose. And it is then that Tonia, armed with what she now knew, goes to the police. And Tonia, of course, after hearing about John selling drugs, began to search for them in their home. And she did find them in her home, drugs which were believed to have been stolen from the hospital that they both worked for. Although she did not know if they were the same drugs that his brother died from, she still felt an ethical obligation to call the police. Go, Tonya. And when John found out that she called the police, his verbal threats on her life began. He began calling Tonya on their home phone and leaving messages telling her to enjoy the time she has left on Earth. John's sister called Tonya and told her to relay the message that nobody in the family wanted John to attend his brother's funeral because they all knew it was John who was mailing IV drugs used by anesthesia providers to his brother. And when nothing was being done about John stealing the drugs from the hospital, Tanya called a local paper and they did an article. Go Tanya again.
Well, it started as, oh, I wish I could remember the title of the article, but basically nurse anesthetist plays the system or something like that. It was in the Daily News April 1st of probably 2000 or 2001, maybe 2001. It took a long time for, the authorities to kind of get behind this. Part of that is because John said the drugs were mine. We worked at the same hospital. I had access to the same fentanyl and Versed that John did. And it was a process of figuring out that those drugs didn't come from the hospital that I worked at.
John was also working in Michigan while Tanya was still at the hospital in Ohio. And it's this charge of stealing narcotics from the hospital in Michigan, which sends him to jail in Michigan. Tanya shares how the more she learned about the truth about John, the more she could understand him and his behaviors. Now, she shares how nothing will ever excuse his actions, but she does shine a light into his life growing up that she learned from his siblings.
Well, it doesn't make I did learn some things. It doesn't make
Mhm.
sense of it. I don't think it's an excuse because I think
No, absolutely not. No excuse.
people come from terrible, terrible families and don't
Mhm.
do this. But, his father did have some terrible behaviors. There is a family lore of his dad being involved with the mafia, whether they're related to them or just involved with them. I don't know a lot of details of that. But, John's sisters will talk about, some of these mafia characters. They remember them being in the home. They remember money being hid in shower curtain rods. And the dad owned a
Mm.
card room and just a lot of bad behavior. John and his dad did some schemes together because his dad was an insurance adjuster. He went to law school, but I understand he didn't pass the bar, so he worked like as an insurance adjuster. And then him and John would, team up to run some scams together. So I think, John learned from his dad.
And then there's this family speculation that John had something to do with his father's death. His father died years before his daughters were born.
They think he may have played a role in his dad's death. His dad was in hospice and John came to visit, and the sister went to take a shower, and then the dad was dead in 5 to 10 minutes. And he was expected to live like maybe a week or a couple of weeks or something, as I recall. And he died alone with John.
Did John have anything to gain financially from his father's death?
Yes.
Okay.
Not life-changing money, but some
Yeah.
money, yes.
When John goes to jail, Tanya is able to breathe for the first time in a long time since the discovery of his secret life. It's this secret life which reveals that John also fathered another child with another woman during his engagement to Tanya, a boy whom Tanya has since come to know. That baby was just 2 months old when Tanya and John wed. And when John is out of jail, he joins an over 50 singles dating website. And that's when he meets Deborah Newell. And that's where the podcast Dirty John begins. And it's also where John's reign of terror ends. When Tanya is told that John is in the hospital, brain dead on life support, she's mid procedure in the operating room. It will be John's sister, a nurse, who makes the final decision to pull the plug. And on August 24, 2017, John Meehan's life will be over, but his wake of trauma and destruction will remain for years for those left in the path to rebuild after him. His daughters have grown into strong women, have become the helpers. In fact, one is a labor and delivery nurse, and the other has her master's in clinical mental health counseling and counsels adolescents. Tanya's book is available everywhere, but I will share for you guys in the link in my show notes. The link to Amazon for you to purchase it will be there. Now, this was just a fraction, if you can believe that, of Tanya's story. And so I encourage everyone listening to go buy her book and read her full story in her own words. And Tanya shares how she needs us to listen to the whispers.
Yeah, the whispers inside your head, just
The
little
whisper.
whispers, little
Yeah.
little warning whispers. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen to that because you're the one who will know your discernment is a lot stronger than most women realize.
Tanya's been remarried to a wonderful man for 22 years. They live on acreage and enjoy their daily routines and family life. They love on their grandchildren and farm animals and don't allow John's dirt to define anything about who they are together. She's found a safe love with her husband. Now, this is a love that now she knows she has always deserved. Do you have anger towards John still? Do you hold on to that?
I don't. And you'll read in the book that right after the plug was pulled on John, while it was still under investigation, his body was waiting to be cremated. I kept having, like these thoughts that I never got to say what I wanted to say because I would have never had a conversation with him, for years. And something just told me I needed to put it down on paper. And I wrote a letter to John that his sister delivered to his dead body before he was cremated. And in that, I was able to find forgiveness, not forgiveness in a way that, what you did is absolved, but forgiveness in a way that I was able to forgive myself, and I was able to say, you tried to destroy me, but you didn't. And all of us are going to live long, healthy lives. And it was really powerful and healing for me to be able to do that. And the anger would only be affecting me. It's not going to affect him in any way.
Yeah.
So anger is not something that I'm holding on to.
Yeah. So when you said forgive yourself, you held a lot of that blame.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, so it's kind of weird because I feel bad of the choice I made for my children's father, but of
Mm.
course that's dumb because I wouldn't have these children without him, right?
Right.
So, but I think I did have to forgive myself because of how we met, the choices I made on the first night, and I just needed to forgive myself first.
Now, please hear me. Anybody listening right now, anybody watching, please hear me. If you or someone you know is experiencing any type of abuse, please contact your local law enforcement and call 1-800-799-7233. We want you safe and you deserve safe love, okay? Okay. This is your host, Jules True Crime, and I'm your host, Jules. Hey, and I want to once again remind you that you do deserve a safe love. And for everybody questioning, no is also a complete sentence. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Hey guys, it's Jules. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please rate and review wherever you are watching or listening. It sure helps me continue to grow and do what I'm doing here at your host, Jules True Crime. And we hope to see you back here next time. But until then, remember, no is a complete sentence. I'm your host, Jules. I'll see you later.
Fire Eyes Media.